It's time to return to the world of Purple Pat Morita and his crazy stories. Cinderella's a stupid story with a foot fetish prince and a giant plot hole. And now we're going to look at 3 animated versions of it.
Do you believe in love at first sight?
Well, no one in Cinderella does, but they apparently believe in love at first shoe size.
Where 2 people see each other for the very first time and live happily ever after?
I'm pretty sure love at first sight does not have a 100% hit rate, Pat.
Well, in France, people tell the story of a girl named Cinderella.
Cinderella actually has a lot of localized variations, with there apparently being thousands of versions of it. So, Cinderella is a really good story for this Tales Around the World series. They're using the one from France as the base tales, that is the version of the story most English speakers are familiar with. Though, the 1697 Charles Perrault version is far from the first telling of the story, as Italian Cinderella was published before this in 1634 by Giambattista Vasile. The oldest known variant, though, is the Greek version of the story called Rhodopis and Her Little Gilded Sandals, which had a Greek slave girl ending up with the king of Egypt and came out sometime between 7 BC and 24 AD. What, we don't have an exact date? What's with the bad record keeping 24 AD? Or 24 CE, whatever you want to call it.
Thought she'd never fall in love, but then one day...
she found someone with a face twice as big as hers, which is what she always wanted. So, like always, I do appreciate that this series does these different art styles for each story. That said, Cinderella's is very bouncy, and a lot of the characters have a weird, ultra-cartoony, ugly baby face thing going on. Especially as Cinderella's stepmother, who quite ridiculously has a boob window on her dress, which makes me think Cinderella's stepsister should be Lursa and Bator.
Slow down, ladies. Slurp slower.
If the stepsisters can become super slow slurpers, that's the last step required for entering high society.
Hi, everybody. What you doing? Well, I finished the mopping, the scrubbing, the washing, the cooking, and the dusting. I made the beds, made the rugs, tossed the furniture, chopped the firewood, cut the grass, and recycled the roof.
Most versions of Cinderella seem to leave out the part about her being high on caffeine.
Is that all? Lady girl, go clean the chimney and the oven.
Yes, stepmother.
Nothing gets Cinderella down, except for the inevitable caffeine crash.
She would sit quietly in her room with Pierre, her faithful one-eyed dog, and Maurice, her faithful frog.
Yes, those are classic characters in every version of the story. Just do not look that up. One of the versions of the tale they used has a frog playing a large part, so maybe they added the frog as a connective piece? Not really sure about the sinister dog, though.
Your sisters have been invited to a ball. Everyone will be there.
Except you, Cinderella, 'cause you wear red.
This cartoon is making me see red, but I'm pretty sure Cinderella isn't wearing that color. Maybe it's just supposed to be so soot-covered it's brown now. I don't know.
Cinderclad, 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 who's gonna dance with Cinderclad?
Cinderclad? Cinderella was already a mocking nickname. Did you really need a mocking nickname for the mocking nickname?
Now, be a good girl and help your stepsisters get ready for the ball.
They're going to have a life-sized whack-a-mole game at the ball, and your sisters are trying out for mole number 5 and 7.
So Cinderella made new dresses.
But they still looked like little Goombas.
Finally, the night of the ball arrived.
Enjoy the dance.
Don't cry, Cinderella. Chevrolet is here.
Borrowed from another day.
No, wait, cut that.
I want to go! Wah!
She actually said wah? Are you kidding me with this, Cinderclad? The dog is concerned about Cinderella not knowing how to convincingly cry, but the frog could give a shit. Odd choice to turn the fairy godmother into a completely yellow-colored bug thing.
Who are you? Why, your fairy godmother.
Am I sure it was just caffeine I was high on?
Do you want to go to the prince's ball or not?
The prince's ball?
Fuck no, I don't want to go to that hoity-toity bullshit.
It took only a few moments of magic for Cinderella's fairy godmother to turn a pumpkin into a fine coach.
I guess the fairy godmother needs matter to work from in the first place. She can't just create stuff out of thin air. Which is, of course, an issue when it comes to the whole glass slipper thing.
6 white mice into 6 white horses. White horses. White horses.
This cartoon just can't deal with colors properly at all. When it's not mislabeling colors, it's super lazily painting characters a single color, making it look like a 3-year-old designed them.
Maurice and Pierre into coachmen.
The fairy godmother is really half-assing these transformations, isn't she? I think when Cinderella actually got to the ball, no one would really care about how well-dressed she was because they'd all be wondering about the dog and frog people in her entourage.
Oh, this must be a dream. Right down to my glass slippers.
Why did the fairy godmother change Cinderella's hair color? Maybe this is supposed to be an excuse for why the prince just can't ID her later by looking at her, but it doesn't explain why he would think that wasn't the best way to try and find her and immediately goes to identification via foot size makes the most sense. And the fairy godmother changing Cinderella's look past just dressing her up seems like she's just trying to make things harder for her. Which I guess is also true of the 12 o'clock curfew. Doesn't really seem like the fairy godmother needs to place that upon her.
You must be home before the clock strikes 12. Poof! They all return to their original form.
Maybe temporary magic is easier and she's just further half-assing her spells here.
Cinderella was met by the prince himself.
The prince was only 40 years older than Cinderella, so this was a great matchup.
Oh. Cinderella danced and dined.
I really must be going.
Yeah, I think that's far more than enough to establish that it's true love between these two. I mean, think of all the lovely things the prince said to her.
So soon, my love. We've only just met.
Get out of there now and never look back, Cinderella.
Kiss me. We've only just met. Kiss me. We've only just met. Kiss me. We've only just met. Kiss me. My darling.
Luckily, that chicken wasn't cooked yet, so the prince found out the one he'd be saying till death do us part to wasn't Cinderella, but instead Salmonella. Now, a change most versions of Cinderella make from old Chucky Perot's version is the prince having multiple balls. And Cinderella actually makes it home before 12 on the first night. It's not until the second ball that she loses track of time. Which I guess does give her and the prince more time to actually get to know each other, but it is kind of repetitive.
Home before 12. Or else. Or else. Or else. Or else. Or else.
Fatality.
Cinderella had a long walk home.
During which she got arrested for public indecency.
All that Cinderella had to remember them by was a single glass slipper.
You know, the plot hole slipper that should have been changed back to normal along with everything else. But I mean, we need the most uncomfortable footwear in existence to stay as it was in order for the prince to assume that no one else in the world has the same shoe size.
Such workmanship. I'll find this princess, and when I do, I shall marry her.
Who cares if that's what she wants? Hey, me Peter creeping!
The prince tried the glass slipper on every foot in town.
Spreading all kinds of foot fungus in the process. That's, of course, when the prince decided to found Wiki Feet.
Hi, everybody. What you doing?
Cinderella has been going around for days with one glass shoe on her foot?
Whoops!
I needed you to do that. You wearing the other one wasn't a big enough clue for me.
My little flower.
And so the prince found his princess.
Thanks, Fairy Godmother, for proving you could have ended this pointless search at any time.
She forgave her stepmother and her stepsisters. Then married her stepsisters to 2 gentlemen of the king's court.
They were miserable the whole time and had no redemption, so it's nice to see them get no comeuppance. Cinderella forgiving her sisters and playing matchmaker for them was a thing from the Chuck Perrault tale, but it didn't say she forgave the stepmother. I assume the prince gave her burning iron shoes and made her dance to death a la Snow White.
What makes a story a Cinderella story? Well, there's always a girl in Chile. People tell the story of a girl named Zappa.
So in Maria Cinderella, the Cinderella never actually gets called that. She's just called by her real name, Maria.
Maria's father had died, so she lived there with her stepmother and stepsister Sophia.
Well, already this adaptation is deviating quite a bit from the original Maria Cinderella tale with just that one line. Originally, Maria's old man was still alive and would send her to the neighbor's place to get coals for their fire. Their neighbor was also a widower and told Maria to tell her father just to marry her so they'd stop bumming coals from her. Her old man tells her he doesn't think the marriage is a great idea, but after Maria insists, he says, "Okay, I'll marry her, but you're going to regret this." You'd think if her father has some kind of vision into the future, he could just not marry her and save Maria the whole evil stepmother thing. Maria's old man and evil stepmother have a new child, which they name New Maria. No, they really do name the new child Maria as well, because they love confusion, I guess. But yeah, the 2 Marias being opposites in personality was kind of a theme in the original tale, so renaming the stepsister Sophia kind of removes that, but for coherency's sake, I suppose I get it.
Sophia was spoiled and very jealous of Maria.
Maria, you are wasting time. Maybe you should spend time with the animals. They're as dirty as you.
One baby llama was very special to Maria. His mother had died, so Maria adopted him.
This cartoon, unsurprisingly, cuts out some of the more gruesome bits from the original tale. Also, it was a young calf Maria got close to originally, not sure why they changed it to a llama. This ends up being a lot like the hero cow thing from the woodcutter's wealthy sister, as Maria's stepmother dumps more work onto her like spinning a bunch of wool, and the calf helps Maria get the work done. Evil Maria sees the calf helping good Maria, so she gets her mother to kill the calf.
Go to the stream and wash the family's clothes. Maria was not happy.
So, yeah, this part was much more morbid too, as Maria was sent to the stream to wash out the calf's intestines, and an eagle flies off with some of the calf remains, leaving Maria bawling in grief instead of here just having to chase down some clothing that blew away in the wind. That's just a tad bit lighter.
Maybe I can help you, but I'm on my way to church. Do you think you could watch my children and clean my house for me?
Wow, what a nice woman. Sure, I'll help you, but first you do way more work for me. Maria does get a bit of a bonus though for babysitting, because in addition to clothing or intestine, the woman gives her a freaking magic wand, yo.
Ah!
Maria is starstruck, but just figuratively.
When you hear a burro bray, look down to the ground, and when a cock crows, look up.
Maria followed the secret instructions. A beautiful star fell from the heavens and perched on her forehead.
Okay, now Maria is starstruck, literally.
Her stepmother got very angry. She wrapped a rag around Maria's head to hide the star's beauty.
She didn't want anyone to know her stepdaughter had become Rainbow Bright.
Sophia wanted a star just like Maria's. She did everything Maria had done.
This bit here with the bad sister trying to repeat her good sister's steps in order to get what she got might seem a little familiar to you if you've seen the MST3K on Jack Frost, as that movie was also partly based on the Russian version of Cinderella.
She lost the clothes, followed the stream, then found the house.
Seems like she didn't really need the clothing in order to just go over to their neighbor's house.
But Sophia knew nothing about cleaning a house or taking care of children.
This part is rather messed up in the original tale, as Magic Wand Woman tells Bad Maria to beat her children and burn junk in the house while she's out at church. I don't know if Bad Maria was supposed to actually have done that or not. I guess she was kind of screwed either way, though, as Magic Wand Woman gives her the opposite instructions about looking up and down on the way home.
But instead of being covered with starlight, Sophia found herself covered with mud.
This was also harsher originally, too, as it was donkey shit that the bad sister falls face first into. So, she became a literal shithead.
It's time for church and this mud just won't come off.
Yeah, apparently the donkey crap wouldn't come off evil Maria either, so they just covered it with rags like Maria's star, but she got the good rags.
Oh, I wish I were going too.
Oh my!
I thought they were kind of going for a Charlie Brown type thing with the not showing the adults fully, but then they just break that near the end. I suppose Peanuts also quite oddly threw that out the window too with some of its specials. Anyway, the bad sister just has to go around everywhere smelling like shit, I guess.
Remembering her magic wand, Maria quickly transformed herself into a princess, and off to church she went.
Do you have to be a princess to go to church?
Maria looked so lovely that a prince decided he wanted to marry her.
Wow! I didn't think we could get even less of a relationship built up than the last story, but they sure showed me! I'm glad, too, that a prince just happened to be at church for some reason.
It was love at first sight.
Oh, that's just called lust at first sight. He doesn't know anything about her.
Maria had to rush home before her stepmother and Sophia.
Or she could just get her own place with her magic wand and not care about her evil family ever again.
She lost one of her golden slippers. When Maria returned home, she changed everything back to normal.
Why does she do this? That's a good question. Also, you'll notice that Maria still had both of her golden slippers on in this shot. Oops.
We cannot have you here sweeping when the prince arrives.
You might think with the throwing Maria in the oven thing that her stepmother might have been thinking about
Children's stew.
But in the original tale, they were just hiding her away from the prince in the oven as well.
Because the golden slipper fit Sophia's foot so well, the prince thought Sophia was the princess.
I mean, sure, she doesn't look like the same person at all, but you can't argue with conclusive evidence like that! I do love in this version of the story, having the shoe fit the evil sister highlights how stupid the Cinderella prince always is.
The prince was about to make a very big mistake.
It would appear that more than one girl actually fits the slipper.
Maria's magic star gave the baby llama the power to speak. Maria is the one.
Since the hero cow was already dead in the original tale, it's just a random dog, maybe the eye patch dog, who barks about the evil sister having burrow dung on her head and that he wants the girl with the gold star instead. You'd think the prince could have followed his nose to that conclusion on his own, but he really is utterly useless.
Are you Maria?
Ta-da! This whole thing was pointless. And look, Maria never even bothered to try on her old golden slipper since she can just create an unlimited supply of them.
The prince found his bride.
And the evil stepsister found a beating at the hands of the prince's servants, which they shockingly omitted.
Most Cinderella stories have a fairy god supper. Sometimes she's different than you'd expect. In Nigeria, people tell a story in which the fairy godmother is not a woman. This fairy godmother isn't even human.
Well, she's a fairy godmother, so she's never really human, Pat. And really, Pat, are we gonna call the yellow bastard from the first tale a human? Anyway, the last Cinderella variation is called the Maiden, the Frog, and the Chief's Son.
The farmer had a first wife who had a daughter, and a second wife who also had a daughter.
The cartoon immediately starts glancing over aspects of the story because the man apparently loved his evil wife and hated the nicer wife who had given birth to Cinderella. Well, she's not really named that in this story, but it doesn't actually give her any proper name, so we'll just call her Cinderella.
The farmer's second wife died.
Anyway, I guess the husband of the year was quite pleased when his hated wife died, and then the ass wife could be mean to Cinderella and make her do all the work like usual.
They would leave only scraps for the hungry girl. She was too ashamed to eat scraps, so she threw them into the river for the frogs.
I guess that's pretty impressive she was surviving on no food. She apparently had a nicer older brother in the story version whose place she'd go over to eat at, which is how she had scraps to give the frogs, which makes slightly more sense.
It is I, King of the Frogs. All my frogs love you.
Yeah, well, the thing about that is I've really got to be going and not having this happen anymore.
Walk into my mouth.
Oh, come on, Frog. You don't need to be that lazy about eating.
He opened his mouth again, and as she emerged, she found she had a lovely new dress.
So yeah, in this story, Cinderella gets a froggy godmother.
And shoes, 1 silver and 1 gold.
Did they have to look like frogs trying to eat my feet?
Hey, do you realize how few people get any gifts from frogs?
When the festival is over, you must leave one of your shoes behind. The gold one.
Ah, the frog isn't gonna leave this to chance. He's got the whole foot fetish prince thing worked out.
The chief's son noticed the girl and invited her to sit with him. And as the evening wore on, they fell in love.
They actually conversed instead of just him ogling her? Weird.
The maiden slipped off her gold shoe and quietly left. The chief's son was very upset, and he vowed to find her.
So the Nigerian prince sends out an email saying he needs help transferring his fortune in gold frog shoes, and somehow no one believes him. Once again, the prince has to be quite face-blind for this find via a shoe thing to make any kind of sense.
The gold shoe leaped from the chief's son's hand and jumped onto the maiden's foot.
The froggy godmother could have told Cinderella she can stay out as long as she wants, just make sure to leave her contact info before going instead of this whole planned accidental leaving of a magic shoe.
So the maiden and the chief's son were married. But there's more to the story.
Yep, there's a lot more that this tune is gonna cut out because Cinderella wasn't the prince's only wife, plus he had some concubines as well. And the magic frog tells Cinderella to give the others in this poly relationship gifts like cola nuts and cowrie shells. This cartoon has also completely removed Cinderella's evil stepsister from the plot. Like, they said Cinderella had a sister, but that was it. So, in some versions, the frog tells the stepsister to be rude to the other wives and concubines, and in others, the stepmother replaces Cinderella with the stepsister, and then she's just a jerk to the rest of the crew because that's how she is. So the stepsister gets found out and then chopped into tiny pieces. Lovely. We can only assume those pieces were then fed to the frogs, but it's all good because the frogs would vomit up gifts.
Whether it's a fairy godmother or a bullfrog, there's always supper. That's the promise that every Cinderella story makes. Supper. This is Pat Morita, and I really do believe in supper at first sight.
Well, I think we all learned an important lesson from that story. Magic frogs aren't human. I forgot. I can't leave yet. I haven't finished my supper.